Okay, so this is a continuation of the Silver Surfer board. Shipped this off to Creations in Chrome a while ago, and it showed up in 3 pieces. Yay for me! So now, they sent this back to me a while ago, but again, with all my commissions and projects and Wonderfest and everything coming up and that stuff I had to get done, it's been put on the side. So I'm going to show you what I got to do to fix this thing again before I send it off back to them for chroming. So, the person I had asked to ship this for me didn't pack it well, unfortunately, because I was busy and I needed to get it out. So it's my fault that I didn't pack it myself and send it out. So what we got to do is we have to make this into one piece again. So, and it shouldn't be that difficult, to be honest. This is a freaking pain in the ass. Luckily, the brakes are clean, so there'll be some filling I have to do, but not a whole lot. But I asked them what they thought of my prep work, and they said, your prep work looks great. So at least I had that going for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install some metal rods in this piece of poo-poo thing that's pissing me off. So I'm going to do one side at a time because I don't think I have a clamp big enough to clamp this whole thing. And plus I want to do one side, get that fixed, and then do the other side. So basically what I gotta do is I gotta drill some holes and put some metal, and I'll use some steel pins. And use steel, not brass, because I don't want it real flexible. So I got some steel rod here. And I gotta remember what size this is. Where are my drill bits? And I'm starting to get sick, which is awesome because I've got a show this weekend and I've got a ton of projects to work on. So this is in 1/4 inch. I want it to be a little bit bigger. I think it's 3/16. Yeah, this is 3/16 right here. So I'm going to make it like 7/32, a little bit bigger. So I've got some wiggle room to get this steel rod in there. And I'm basically going to do is I'll make sure it's not too thick. I'm going to actually start out with a smaller drill bit because I do not want to crack this out while I do this. So let's start off with a 9/64, and I think two rods going down the side of this sucker will be good. So I'm going to start here. And just make sure I'm going in so I don't come out the top of the bottom. And this stuff has like a fiberglass in it. You know, some of these resins they use smell like fiberglass, so I'm not sure if they're using that as a filler or what. Now what I don't want to do is have my drill bit break off into the resin, so I'm going to drill a little bit and then bring it out and then drill a little bit and bring it out, because that would suck. I have broken drill parts off in resin before, and sometimes I can get them out, sometimes I can't. Okay, so it's starting to come out here a little bit, so it's going a little bit crooked, which is fine. I'm going to just kind of come in and make sure I come in. Nope, that came out. Okay, so that's exactly what I didn't want to do. Not the end of the world because so I did end up coming out here a little bit. It's not the end of the world, 'cause I'm gonna do Bondo work on this anyway. But you know, if I can keep from messing it up anymore, that's ideal. Now, this being steel rod, this won't bend, so I've got to make sure that I can put this in, and I do have a smaller steel rod. What size is this? What is this? 5/32. I really would like to use the bigger one. Let's see, what size is this? Let's get the 3/16 in there. So right now, this hole is as long as that bit, so it comes down to there. I could try to make it a little deeper. Don't know if I'm going to do that. Ideally, when they casted this thing, they would have put a rod down both sides of this sucker, just to avoid it from breaking at any time. And plus, it's a long piece of resin, and resin can flex over time. So, kind of made sense to do something like that. So I'm going to do one side. Excuse me, I'm going to do the holes, do the pins on one side, clamp it, and then I'm not going to videotape the other side because it's the same process. But what I do is once that's all pinned and dried, then I'll show you the filling work and Bondo work, which will probably be tomorrow because I have to let the epoxy cure up 24 hours to be completely solid. So right now I just want to get this thing back together in one piece. And this material right here, just like this resin fiberglass, will tear up your drill bits. So go through drill bits really quick. Just going a little bit at a time. You're probably wondering, how am I going to locate the next hole? Don't worry, I have a trick for that. Okay. What's interesting is with this broken like this, you can see all the layers that the factory put on this piece, and there's a lot of layers. I mean, my primer's relatively thick that I put on there, probably a little thick, so I'll sand most of it off. And I'll have to clean out these grooves a little bit more because by the time I'm done bondoing and priming again, those grooves will get filled, so I'll have to clean them out a little bit in this whole process. Alright, so I went through again. No big deal. You can see I went through here on the bottom again. That's not the end of the world. So what I did since I went through there, and the same thing on the other side, what I did is I took my drill bit and I just angled it a little bit towards the top so that I wouldn't go through any further. Okay, so now I got 2 nice holes there. And I probably will have to use a smaller rod because this stuff is not going to flex. And it's going to be virtually impossible for me to get my drill bits perfectly straight and centered on these pieces. So now what we're going to do is we've got to locate the next holes. Okay? And for that, we're going to use our blue tack. I've showed this trick before. Take some blue tack, warm it up so it's kind of sticky. And this I need it just real thin because these, like I said, it's a clean break. It fits really well. So I'm just going to put some blue tack real thin on this edge right here, approximately where the hole needs to go. And we're going to line everything up. And we're going to give it a squeeze. There, right there. Do it again. I'm going to give it a small squeeze. Okay, right there. And now you can see I've got a little spot where the blue tack got pushed up into the hole. I have to take a break here in a second. My dog is whining. Now we're just going to go in there and mark the center of that. And this will give us the location of our hole. I'm going to try, hopefully I don't mess up, I'm going to try just drilling with this drill bit, see what happens. Make sure we're centered. Just do a little bit at a time. Ideally, I could get a rod going through this whole piece right here. I'm not sure it's going to happen. Let me try. It's going through again on the bottom. Well, it's messy. It's getting messy, but in the end it's going to be fine. Okay, so there's that. We'll drill another hole on this side. And then what I'll also do is I'll drill a bunch of little shallow holes along the edges, so when I put the epoxy in, it will go into those holes and just help lock it in place. I may be able to only do one side at night, because I really need that epoxy to dry really good overnight to make sure it's going to hold up well. Okay, I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. Got my little piece of blue tack here. Line these up. And we give it a little squeeze out there. And I've got my little blue tack sticking up. And I'm not going to use it exact. I'm just going to do that. The hard part is getting this hole centered on this, getting it centered on the board. My battery's died. Yay, my battery's died. Alright, so I gotta get. So I'm gonna let that charge. I'll drill that hole and I'll come back and show you how I epoxy it together. Alright, so my drill drives, I'm gonna show you drill drives. As my drill charges, let me show you what we have to do here, because I don't want to use brass. I want something that's really stiff. I want to use the steel. So since my holes aren't exactly straight, and these guys, when I put this in there, it's not lined up exactly perfect, which I knew it was going to be. So I'm going to bend it a little bit. So I'm going to mark the rod here, and I'm going to see if I can bend this. Now, I may have to, hopefully I can do this by hand. I don't know, this stuff is pretty strong. Let's see. I may have to put this in a, let's see. Maybe I'll have to use brass. I don't know. I mean, brass this thick is pretty stiff, but still, I prefer to use steel if I can. Let's see. Let's see if I can bend it a little bit. What I don't have is I don't have a table vise, so it's like one tool I need to get is a table vise. I don't own one. Okay, well, that's not working. So, let's see what we can do with the brass. Let's see what we can do with brass. Give this thing some rigidity. So I'm going to work on the angle of the hole, I think, a little bit. Does that work right there? Let's see. Alright, so we're going to work on this hole just a little bit more. So I gotta wait till my drill charges up to do that. Or I could go get a quarter drill. I got one somewhere, so I'll come back. Okay, I just came up with an idea that I think I'm going to do rather than trying to drill holes in this. Since I've already gone through on the bottom here, what I'm going to do, I think this will be a better solution and a stronger solution. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up here on my workbench, which is flat, relatively flat. I'm going to carve some channels out, I think. I got a straight edge here. Carve some channels up my Dremel. And I can lay in nice long pieces of steel, and I can run it the whole length, I think. So make sure this is all lined up. I'm going to use my straight edge here. And I'm going to mark. This is just a India ink pen I have laying around. So if I do this, I can drill out a channel. I can lay in a steel rod, and I have resin. I can bury this in some resin, which will strengthen it, and then will also make filling a little bit easier, I think. So I'm going to do this. Like that. What made me think of this is that my parents had a marble table that used to belong to my grandparents. They've been passed away for a while. And the marble top broke. And the guys that fixed it, they did this. They drilled out channels in the bottom of the marble top. Because marble, you know, the veining is very easy to break. And then they laid in steel reinforcement and then filled it in with a colored resin. Not that I need colored resin. So now what I'm going to do, it's going to be loud because I'm going to use my Dremel with a carving bit. And I'm also going to use a vacuum cleaner at the same time to get up the resin dust. So, so let me get this cutting bit out of here. And let me see what I have for the carving bit for the Dremel. Let's see, just saw one. Maybe this guy or this guy. Okay. So I'm looking at my Dremel bits to see which one would be the best solution for what I want to do. I actually have like this routing bit. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this, and this channel is going to be messy. It's not going to be real straight or anything, but this will give me a guideline at least. And let me show my vacuum cleaner's hooked up. My work area is a complete wreck again. I got some kits I want to try to review tonight if I have time. Okay, so what we're going to do then, we're going to put this on time lapse because it's going to be loud and messy. And you guys want to hear this, me grinding on this for the next 20 minutes or so. And so I'm going to do that. Okay, so I got one channel cut. Started out with this bit right here, and then I finished up with this bit here. Basically, I kind of got that outline. I went in and flattened it all out, got the right depth with this guy. So I'm not going to videotape the other one, but I want to show you how this is going to work when I get this all together. So now I got this real long channel coming down here. I won't do this on my workbench because my workbench is a little wonky because of all the shit that's on it. But I'm going to basically mark this thing in half. This rod. Let's see how long is this sucker. This is 26 and a half. And this is, so yeah, if I do 13 and a quarter, that gives me a really nice long piece in there, I think. Yeah. Okay, so let's mark this in half and cut it. Let's see. $13 and a quarter, right there. Come on. That should be about 13 and a quarter. Yep. Okay, so let's cut that. There. So that'll fit in there nicely, just like that. And once I get this on a perfectly flat surface, I'll get this all situated, and then I'll fill this in with resin, and that will put these two steel beams in the board like that. So I'm going to cut this other channel. I'm not going to videotape it. And then when I get this kind of set up to a spot where I can pour resin, I'll do that. So I'll come back later. Okay, so I got the channels cut, and my rods fit in there beautifully, and they're recessed below the surface just enough. So now what you can do is get this on a flat surface. And unfortunately, I don't have a clamp long enough to clamp this whole thing. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I want to do this kind of all in one shot, but I need to get this on a flat surface first. And I may not need to clamp it. I'll figure something out because I don't have a clamp long enough. My longest clamp is, I think, 16 inches. This guy right here. It's not nearly long enough. I mean, I could do one side and the other, but I don't want to do that. I'd rather get this kind of... I may just put this on a flat surface and make sure it's all flat and not clamp it, because it's a clean break, so there's really not a gap per se. And the way the surfer goes on the board, he only pegs in on the back side of the board, so there's no other alignment holes anywhere on the board, just on the back side. So it's not like I have to make sure that these holes are the same distance apart as they were originally. So let me get set up somewhere on a flat surface, and I'll show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, so move the other side of my work area. I don't ever use this area other than staging, but this is it's a perfectly flat work surface. So I've got some parchment paper here just to keep the surface from getting messy, and I'm going to basically lay these pieces out. Like so, and like so. And they pretty much lock together. I mean, it's a good fit. So just like that. And I'm not going to worry about trying to clamp this because, like I said, I don't have a clamp big enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these in here. And I've got some quick cure resin, I guess like 5-minute resin, and then my wife has some slow cure resin, which will take overnight. So what I'm going to do first is I'm basically going to put some quick cure resin in there just to kind of get these set in place. And then once that sets up, I'll use the slow cure resin and let it cure overnight. And the resin I have is clear. Doesn't matter if it's clear or solid or opaque. I'm just getting my stuff over here on the other side. I need resin, I need a stirring stick, and I need a measuring cup so I can mix equal parts. This is a 1-to-1 ratio mix. So let me go to my paint. Let me get some of those real quick. 1 second. So this stuff is basically like 5-minute working time. Now the more you mix up, the faster it kicks off. So and this will pour out of the bottom. That's why this parchment paper here, and I'll probably get stuck to it and all sorts of fun stuff. But this is the whole thing is going to get a bunch of sanding and Bondo work after this is all done. So just make sure it's lined up really well, just like it is. Now the surfboard isn't perfectly flat anyway. It's got a little bit of a bow in the center portion, like the sides. It curves like the middle is flat and the sides, the edges curve up a little bit. Actually, they curve down a little bit. So that's another reason why I'm not really clamping this. I'm just kind of letting it find its spot. And another thing that this quick cure resin will do is will hopefully seal a little bit of a gap I do have in there. So when I put the slow stuff in there, it won't run all over the place as it's trying to cure. I do want to make sure the edges are lined up pretty good. And once I do this, then once this part of this process is done, I'll actually go in and I'll carve a little V groove where these cracks are, because if I just try to fill it, it'll never look right. You have to actually, in order to feather it out, you gotta kind of make a V groove. So I'm gonna mix up, let's see, we'll do 30 mils and see, hopefully this won't kick off too fast. The more you mix up at once, the faster it goes. Okay, right about there. I should have worn gloves, but I didn't. I'm upstairs making a video. I have not yet. I'm working. I'll do it in a little bit. Someone's been bugging me to fix his PlayStation. He can't get on to play Fortnite. Okay. Because I was grinding resin. I'm in the middle of making a video, so if I don't talk to you, that's why. Okay, so we're going to mix this up. It's starting to warm up already, I can tell. So when it starts to warm up, that means it's starting to kick off. Again, I'm just kind of using this as an initial way to lock these rods down. Actually, might be enough to fill this whole channel. Let's see. Okay.
It's okay if it spills out a little bit. This is all going to get sanded down later. Okay, so I'm going to mix up a little bit more. 30 was just almost enough. Mix up like another 10. When you first mix it, it goes cloudy, and once it turns clear, you know it's pretty much mixed up. And that's starting to kick off already up there. You can see it. It's starting to turn opaque or white. Alright, so we're going to let this cure. I'm going to touch this probably till tomorrow. Even though this says this will harden. Let's see what it says on here. It says hold on, somewhere it tells you how long this takes. Maybe not on here, it doesn't. No, that's all the dangerous stuff. Anyway, you have a 5-minute working time, and you can see here we're starting to turn white. It means it's starting to kick off and solidify. Oops. Just when I said I wasn't going to touch it, I touched it. But now's the time to make any adjustments if it's not lined up exactly. It feels pretty good, actually. Oh, there's a chip out, that's why. Actually, it's working pretty good because that resin is going into that crack a little bit and filling it, so. Okay. Alright, so I'm not going to touch it. That looks pretty good. So that's it for this step. We'll let this stuff cure, and then we'll come back and look at it and see what we need to do next. Alright, so it's been a while since I've touched anything. I've actually been sick for about the past week, and I had another show this past weekend. So back to the board. Here you can see the last part of the video was inserting the steel rods, filling these cavities with resin. This has actually been cured for a very long time. Just went to the hardware store to pick up some new sandpaper. I didn't have anything really the grit I wanted, so I only got some 80 grit sandpaper. And I'll probably end up eventually going to the auto body store and getting. It's more cost effective to buy this stuff like at the auto body supply store, because like this pack of 15 was like $11. I can get a nice big pack or a roll of it. It's, you know, you probably spend maybe $70 on a roll or pack, but you'll get enough to last you for a very long time. So it's more cost effective to buy it in bulk. So I'm gonna start off with 80 grit sandpaper, and I bought some of these sanding sponges. I'll be right back. I gotta pause. Sorry about that. My wife was calling. So anyway, going and got some 80 grit and some 220. I'm going to cut this up into smaller sheets. I'm outside because this is really messy and it's hot out. It's actually really hot out, and that's like 100 degrees. So my goal is to kind of get this thing. I need to get this board done and out of here. I've got to pack up all those statues that everyone let me borrow. I've got to get those packed up and back to my clients. So I got a lot going on. I got so many projects going on. I have enough work for 2 full-time jobs. I just wish the money was there to make it viable for me to go full time. It's just not there. I can't charge enough, and I can't build and paint fast enough. If I went full time, I would take like a 30% pay cut to what I'm making at my full time job. So the first step here is basically to sand this down and get all this excess resin off. So I'm using 80 grit right now. It's going to cut quicker. Just trying to get this smoothed out. So I'll probably, again, you can see how much primer I had on that first round, because this is 80 grit and I haven't even gone through it. And another thing about this paper you get from hardware stores, it clogs extremely fast. The stuff you get in an auto body shop, it does not clog nearly as easy as stuff you get at the hardware store. So again, you're spending more money, but it's a much higher quality sandpaper. It will last much longer. It won't clog nearly as quickly. So, it's better to kind of spend that extra money on a better sandpaper. Now, some of this resin is just peeling right off because it's just on top of the primer, and resin won't stick to the primer, but it will stay. It'll stick to my channels. So I bore those out, so it's resin on resin. So I'm going to sand this out, and I'll come back. No reason for you guys to... Oh yeah, I'm recording. Okay, sometimes I don't know if I'm recording. So no reason for you guys to watch me sand for a few minutes, so I'll come back when I'm done sanding. Okay, so I got the excess resin sanded off on the bottom. That was done with the 80 grit. And I actually had enough resin in some of the areas of the channel where it's sanded pretty smooth. We're going to continue to sand this with 80 grit just to knock it down a little bit. Since I'm here, I'm sanding, I might as well do it anyway to make sure it's really smooth. So the next step is going to be using body filler to fill the rest of the void. I'll do the bottom side first, and I'll concentrate on the top. But what I'll have to do is where it actually broke in these cracks, I'll have to go through and make sure that I'll have to make sure there's bare resin. So I'll go in there and I'll dig a little groove out actually in the crack. Otherwise the filler won't stick. And you need it won't fill correctly, they just butt up together. You kind of need like a little valley so you can fill it in and feather the edge out. There's a lot of primer on this sucker from that first application I did. Probably way more than I needed. It's okay. I got a towel down so I don't bang it up any more than I need to. So that's looking pretty good. And even where the resin didn't get sanded, I'm going to just scuff it up a little bit so the body will have something to bind to. Alright, so we continue sanding and getting this ready for body fill, and I'll come back. Okay, so I moved to a different location because the sun was becoming an issue. So, and it's really freaking hot out. So I've gone around and done everything with 80 grit. Sorry, I gotta wipe all the sweat off my brow because it's getting in my eyes and it's stinging. And I also went through with the 80 grit and I folded it up and I sanded these grooves out again because they're getting filled in. So you can see here, this is pretty much sanded down. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to hit it real quick with an 80 grit, not 80 grit, a 180 just to knock these scratches down a little bit more. What do I have? This is a 180 grit sponge. Excuse me, still recovering from being sick. So I'm going to hit this, just kind of hit it with the sponge to lessen the scratches a little bit. And I lucked out that when I poured the resin in these channels, a lot of it actually went into the cracks and filled in the cracks pretty good. So I'm hoping I can get away with one application of filler. It may take two because I got some areas where it's a little, I got some pretty deep, like when it broke, I got some chip out here and stuff on the edges. So I may take two applications of body filler. So I'm just going to hit it with the 180 real quick. And then I'll go inside and get my body filler. We'll do one side at a time. You can see I got bare resin all the way on this crack and everything, so the body filler will stick really well to that. Alright, so that's pretty good. It's real smooth. I don't feel the crack except for where I got a little chip out right here. Let me hit this just by hand. You have to be careful with the body filler. You don't fill in these little detail lines here. So what I'll do is while the body filler is still wet, I'll get a toothpick and just kind of clean those edges out, those grooves out. Alright, so I'm going to pause again. I'll be right back with body filler. Alright, so I got my body filler, got my air compressor out here. I blew this off to get all the dust off. We'll do the top side first. Now it's pretty hot out here, so I want to be careful I don't put too much hardener in this because it'll kick off before I'm done spreading. Actually, I'm going to take it off of this towel because it's actually a decent towel. It'll come off easier off my table if I get anything on the table. And I've got a piece of scrap cardboard here for a mixing board. Call this ghetto body work. It's windy out here, so all my stuff is blowing around too. So, there we go. Alright, so I'm just going to get some filler out. About time to get another thing of filler. That should be enough right there for the top side. There, mix this up really good. When you're mixing Bondo, you want to fold it in like this because it helps prevent air bubbles while you mix. You don't want to mix it like you're mixing a cake. You want to spread it out like this and push down on it. Keeps air bubbles from forming. It helps reduce it at least. You might get a little bit, but so mix this up till it's a uniform color. If you see me banding or anything, keep going. Now, with it being as hot out as it is, this will start to set up pretty quick. We got some toothpicks here to the side, and basically I'm just going to take this one and spread this whole top, just like that. I gotta make sure I clean up those grooves before this sets up. Otherwise, I'll be digging the Bondo out. It's not the end of the world. It's just a lot more work. And when I do this, I push down pretty good on it. On the filler, it does two things. It gets it into all the areas that it needs to get into, and it just helps it stick. Get the edges a little bit. That. I'll have to drill out the holes where the surfer goes. Again, that's no big deal. Clean them out with the drill bit. Okay, this is starting to kick off, so I'm going to go in here and clean these grooves out. Just like that. And then I'm not worried about it being real neat right now because after I sand it, it'll be good. Actually, break this toothpick a little bit so I have a broader edge. So you can see there, it just kicked off. So I clean this out just in the nick of time. Alright, so even though it's hot out, I'm going to let this sit for a good 10-15 minutes. Make it sure it's nice and hard before you start sanding on it, otherwise it'll just gum up your paper. And you'll waste a lot of paper. So I'm going to pause again and I'll come back when it's ready to sand. Alright, so it's dry for about 10-15 minutes. It's nice and hard. So I know sanding is not the most exciting thing to watch, but I do want to tell you a little bit about when you're sanding body filler, whether on a car or anything. Your inclination is to go back and forth like this the whole time. You really don't want to do that. You want to go at an angle. So you want to go kind of like at a 45 this way over the whole surface, and then back at it again this way over the whole surface. What that does is it makes sure that you have a flat surface. If I was just to go back and forth like this, I'd just be cutting grooves, or channels in on the body filler this way. So you want to go in angles like this, okay, over the whole panel. So you go like this, and then come back at it from the other angle, the opposite angle. The only thing is make sure that your surface is flat. It helps clean your sandpaper. Okay? Well, this being nice and warm out today, this should sand fairly easily. Because Mondo does not like to sand when it's not fully cured. It just gets gummy. And most of this will be coming off. But you notice that when I filled this whole area. I filled beyond the repair area. The repair area was only about that big. But I feathered it out further, about another 2 inches in each direction. Because what you want to do is you want to feather that filler. And you have an area like this right here. It's called the feather edge, where it gradually blends into the surface. So that's what you're doing. You're feathering your sanding. This is 80 grit again. It's cutting really well. I'm actually going to just flip the board around. Actually, no, I can't do that. Come out from this side again, opposite direction. Now, you may ask, why am I not using an orbital sander or a machine sander? I don't like to do that on filler because you'll dig into it too easily. I've always been one to use a block. Even when I did body work, I rarely used what they call an air file, which is a big air sander, or an orbital sander. I always hand blocked. It's slower, but you get better results. I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on this. I'm letting the sandpaper do all the work. It's actually looking pretty good. If I run my hand over this, it's basically perfectly flat. So when I'm doing this, when I feel like it's just about there, I'll stop with the 80 grit and I'll go to a higher grit because I don't want to over sand with the 80 grit and avoid having to do a round of filling. Because I'm sand this edge, right? When we fill around the edge, you have some chip out from where it broke on the edge here. So I wasn't too careful with how neat it was, and we had to kind of put in a nice bead of filler on it, and then I'll just carve it to shape with the sandpaper. And this 80 grit's cutting this Bondo really, really well. So that edge looks really good. Feels really good. And this edge looks good. Okay, so now that feels really, really good. Now we're going to this 180, just a sponge, and just basically we're going in there, and now we're just reducing the sand scratches so they're not so aggressive. We'll take this down to a 220 sand scratch before we prime. So just means less primer will be needed. You can see, man, I had a lot of primer on this that first time I did it because this thing's been sanded pretty aggressively today, and I haven't gone through in some areas. Again, just try to make sure you sand it at an angle. And another reason I think is an orbital sander, if it generates too much heat, and with this being resin, it could warp it. That top looks really good. Damn. Smooth as a baby's bottom. Really good. Alright, so now we're going to fill the bottom side and repeat the process. So I got my air compressor here. Let's see if I got any air in there to blow this off a little bit. I'm going to get my pool, so alright. Same thing, we're going to get some filler. Get my towel out since I got that sanded nice and smooth. I don't want to bang up that sanding I just did. So if I get a little filler in the towel, I guess it's not the end of the world. This is very messy. You want to do this outside anytime you do any kind of body work. Okay, so the nice thing about a Bondo spreader, once the Bondo is hardened, it just peels right off. At least it should. Okay. Get some more filler. Shouldn't take a whole lot. Again, we're going to extend the repair area past the cracks enough where I have room to blend the repair. It's going to be a little messier because I got the mounting point in the middle here to contend with, so I won't be able to really worry about spreading it too smooth across the whole surface, but we'll do the best we can. Again, just pushing down on it. Make sure we get filler in all the any low areas or cracks, particularly these channels where I got the rods and the resin. So it's going to be a little messier on this bottom side, but once we sand it all down, it'll look good. Oops, I just got a big old glob of Bondo on the towel there. My wife is not going to be happy about that. I can feel it kicking off already. We got a big old piece of junk in there. Get that out. Hopefully I can get this done with one application. This may take two just because it's hard to spread it smoothly around this mounting point. And it's already kicked off, so it's about as far as I can go spreading it. So we'll see. This probably take another application just to kind of let that dry on the towel, and it should peel off. So again, let this dry, and then we'll sand and come back. Okay, so here's the board again, mounted, ready for primer. I sanded it with the 80 grit, and then I went over it with the 120 and then 220 finally. I had to do a few little spots here and there to fill in some pinholes and stuff, but here it is, ready for primer again. I'm not going to show the priming phase again since I did that earlier in a previous video. So basically those are all the steps taken to get this thing ready for primer again. And then we'll get it shipped out hopefully shortly and get this thing finished, because I've had this thing for like 6 months now and I'm ready to be done with it. I've got a lot of time and I'll have a lot of money invested in this piece to get it done. But it'll be done correctly, and that'll be a good thing. So I think that's it for this work in progress. I think the next time hopefully it'll be chromed. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. This is Matt Mosick. Catch you guys next time.